So we're in the sixth chapter of Sotah. This is actually the last chapter that really deals with issues related to Sotah. So we'll move very quickly on to all kinds of other topics, including, well, and we'll see. But we've always said that the whole question of Sotah is related to the question of uncertainty. So this woman is caught in a tragic position. And it's because the jealousy of her husband and the uncertainty as to what really happened. And the test of the bitter waters is going to be used to resolve the uncertainty. And we'll see, by the way, in the tractate that this is not the only type of uncertainty that we deal with. So we'll get into the laws of the Egla Arufa, the calf whose neck is broken in the dry valley after someone is found dead in the desert. We don't know who killed this guy in the desert, and we're going to go through this atonement ritual. So we're dealing with uncertainty, and we're also dealing, we found out, with questions of uncertainty with regard to halacha. How do we know we're keeping the right halacha? Where does halacha come from? And we had pyrotechnics of drush from Rabbi Akiva, who who learns halacha out from text. Okay, that's one way of making sure that we're learning the look, keeping the right halacha. We learn it out from text. And as we go through this sixth chapter, we're going to briefly disappear into back to this question: how do we know we have the right halacha? Because we learned in the first Mishnah of the sixth chapter that if a wife has been warned, if a husband has warned his wife, and then he hears this rumor that she's been defiled, then he has to divorce her. He can't. He has to divorce and give her ketubah. So we no longer have the uncertainty. So she can no longer drink the waters. If there's no question of uncertainty, she can't drink the waters. And we learned in the second Mishnah of the sixth chapter that one witness is sufficient. If one witness comes along and says she was defiled, she can no longer drink the water. So she divorces, she gets a ketubah, but she doesn't go through the ceremony. And the Mishnah is going to ask, we're going to pick this up in the third Mishnah of the sixth chapter. Well, how do we know? How do we know this is right? How do we know that one witness is sufficient? And it could have brought an example from, maybe it could have said, look, we have this from tradition, or we heard it from our teacher. You know, this year Pesach fell on Erev Pesach fell on Shabbat. Really complicated, really complicated when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbat, just for us because we're preparing for Pesach. But can you imagine what it was like in the time that the temple stood? Everyone on Erev Pesach, everyone is running around slaughtering their Pesach offering. And how are you going to get your knife to the Beit Mikdash when you can't carry it in the public space on Shabbat? And it's a very interesting story. Hillel comes from Babylon and he explains to the people of Jerusalem that they should take a knife and they should just tuck it. They should make it stick in the woolly hair of the sheep, and the sheep will then carry it through the streets of Jerusalem, and you don't have to carry your knife. So that's how you get round the problem when Erev Pesach falls on Shabbat. You essentially make the sheep carry the knife. And according to the Talmud, he explained this to them for 3 days, and he learned this out from various psukim, and they didn't believe him. And then he said, "Kach v'kach shemati mi Shemaiah v'Avtalion." This and this I heard from my teachers Shemaiah and Avtalion in Bavel. And at that point they said, "Oh, fine, okay. In that case, we believe you straight off." In other words, they believe the tradition, but not the drush. And here we're going to see the opposite way round. We have a tradition that one witness is necessary, but we're not going to believe the tradition. We're going to learn it from the Pesukim. So let's have a look at the Mishnah now. So we know only one witness is required. Shehayavadin, we could have made a logical inference. Ma imezos harishona she'ena oseret, she'ena osarta isur olam. Surely the first evidence, which doesn't prohibit her for all time, this is the evidence that she was secluded. So the process, remember, is that he warns her in front of witnesses, and two witnesses are required. According to Rabbi Yoshua, that's the halacha. And then if she is secluded with this man, another two witnesses are required. So two witnesses are required for her to drink the bitter waters, once for the warning and once for the seclusion. Two witnesses twice. So we know that. So we're going to say, look, wouldn't it be logical if the first evidence requires two witnesses? Eina mitkayemet mi pachot mishtaim. Surely that we need two witnesses for that one. Eduta achrona shehi osarta isur olam. Surely the second evidence, the evidence that she's been defiled, which is going to result in her divorce, and therefore she'll be separated from her husband for the whole of her life. Eina din shelo titkayem b'pachot mishnaim. Shouldn't that require two witnesses too? In other words, if you require two witnesses to drink, to make your wife drink the waters, don't you need two witnesses in order to divorce her? It's logical. It's logical, but logic doesn't work here. And we're going to bring a verse. Talmud Lomar. The aid ein bah in the whole description of the Sotah. We read V'shachav ish otah shechvat zera v'nelam einei isha. Someone has sex with her. It's hidden from the eyes of her husband. V'nistera, and it's undetected. V'aid ein ba. There's no witness against her. And the word witness here is singular. There's no singular witness against her. So the Mishnah is now going to say, he's going to quote, V'aid ein ba. There's no witness. It's the witness is in the singular. Kol sheyesh ba. Any number of witnesses is fine. Even one witness is fine. So the logic doesn't work, but the verse proves it. Exactly opposite to the experience of Hillel trying to teach the people when Erev Shabbat fell on when Erev Pesach fell on Shabbat. But now we're going to try an argument. Well, now let's run this argument in the opposite direction, okay? Because we can run comparisons both. Kal v'chomer la'idut harishona me'atza. So we can do a smaller, large argument, a kal v'chomer argument. We can do another logical reasoning with respect to the first evidence, la'idut harishona and me'atza. This is how we're going to do it. Ma im eduta achrona shehi oseret isur olam harei hi mitkayemet be'er echad. If the final evidence, which prohibits her to her husband for all time, is established by one witness, edut harishona she'ena osarta isur olam. Surely the first evidence, the evidence that she needs to drink the bitter waters, which only prohibits her temporarily. Remember, she can't be with her husband during the process. Surely the first evidence, Eino din shetit kayam ba'er echad, shouldn't that also run on one witness? I.e., if we know that the divorce can happen with one witness, surely the warning, the warning and the evidence of seclusion that makes her drink the bitter waters should also happen with one witness. What are we going to do? Well, again, we're going to disregard the logic and we're going to keep the Pesukim. And this time we're going to do a Gzerah Shavah. This is almost like a magic drush, a Gzerah Shavah. We're going to find two words. And the word we're going to find is davar. And usually there's a literary underpinning to a Gzerah Shavah. Gzerah Shavah is not just a technical drush. So davar, I mean, maybe this is related to the word for speech, because a davar can be a word as well as a thing. Here it's being used as a thing, but it can be a word. So maybe we're playing around here with the meaning of words. But let's look at the drush. How does the drush work? Talmud lomar kimat sava ervat davar. In the halacha in Devarim that describes it's an unfortunate halacha that describes someone taking a wife and finding some unseemly matter in her. Kimat saba ervat davar. So that's one verse we have, and it's related to divorce. Ulhalan hu omer al pi shnaim edim or shlosha edim yakum davar. This is a famous verse. On the mouth of two witnesses or three witnesses shall the matter be established. We can't give evidence in a Jewish court without two or three witnesses. Everybody knows that. It's a verse. It's a pasuk in Devarim. Ma davar amur lahala. Just as the matter mentioned in that last case, al pi shnai edim, has to be on the testimony of two witnesses. Af davar amur kan. So the davar that is said here, that's the davar related to divorce, the davar that triggers the divorce. Af davar ha'amur kan al pi shnaim edim. So the davar which happens here comes with two witnesses. So we stick. Well, we knew the halacha anyway. We know the halacha anyway. Your Rabbi Shah told us the halacha, that in order to make your wife drink the bitter waters, you need two witnesses, both for the warning and for the seclusion. But we have now proved it from the verses. So we've resolved some uncertainty in our exegetical procedure. We've resolved uncertainty in terms of how we know we're keeping the right halacha, as well as learning a little bit about uncertainty in the relationship between a husband and the wife.